Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Snap Material Podcast. We are back here. It's July, and we are going to be talking about the previous season, which was the Celestials' finest. We got the upcoming season, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. That's the upcoming season. It's releasing on July 9th. And we're also going to be talking about what we unlocked and our variants and all that fun stuff and what we thought of the meta this past season too. And then we'll have our top 5. So be looking forward to that. We're going to split this all out in about 4 separate episodes. And there is going to be a battle on the YouTube channel, which should be at Source Material. I think it's hashtag Source Material on YouTube.
Should keep referring to it as the YouTube.
You should be able to find all of our battles that we have had on YouTube. That's right, in person. There's only been a couple, and some streaming on there as well, so you can check that out. But with that being said, let's get into our discussion here on last season, which was the Celestials' finest, released June 4th, 2024. Our first card we're going to be talking about here is Gilgamesh. 5 cost, 9 power. But you said it was originally 5/7. 5 cost 7 power. So they buffed him pretty quickly, if I remember right.
I think they were worried that not as many people were using him. I had fun using him, but he kind of makes Abomination obsolete now.
True.
After I got those sweet variants, I had a deck I was using Abomination in pretty regularly, and I'm like, finally, can you use this guy? And I got that weird Thunderbolts variant, and then I was like, why would I not use Gilgamesh?
Yeah, power creep is
at least the same power.
On reveal, +1 power for each of your other cards in play with increased power.
Did you want to actually finish reading it before I gave my commentary?
Oh, don't worry, I hopped right in there too. No big deal. I saw him a handful of times. This was the card that came with the season when you bought it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I still didn't seem like I ran into him a whole lot, but when I did, he was definitely a problem. I played a game today, I think it was earlier this morning, where I was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. I want to win this thing. And then Gilgamesh come out. And then I think he turned around and did Silver Surfer after Gilgamesh. And I was like, okay. But I shouldn't say that. I think it's Silver Surfer first, then Gilgamesh, because it's an on reveal +1 power for each of your other cards in play with increased power. So anyway, either way, he was a force to be reckoned with.
I used him a lot from the get-go, and I found it was when a friend of mine slapped me around with a deck with him and Thor and Beta Ray Bill and Sage that I kind of took that. I'm a great deck thief.
Well, I understand.
Forget to give credit, but yeah, I used that one. He eventually made his way into that became my MCU hammer deck. So just basically trying to get as many cards out there as I could to boost themselves or other cards. Actually, I think one of the first things I wanted to try with him was Guardians of the Galaxy, because they all boost themselves. But then if you don't hit it at the right spot, what I ended up doing was finding cards, definitely some that boost themselves, but finding cards that boost other cards, like Okoye and Nakia. I teamed with him pretty quick. Now, Nakia ended up not making it out, because usually if you get Okoye early, you can hit more cards with her.
Right.
And then, of course, Magic made her way in there, and Odin to trigger Gilgamesh or Sage or the hammers again. But and Gilgamesh hanging out with Asgardians is not without precedent. I think his first appearance was in Kirby's original Eternals story, but in the Thor Eternals saga, Gilgamesh had been kind of banished for screwing something up, and he was blind. And the Celestials gave him a big suit of armor and sent him down to slap Thor in the Eternals round for a while. His villain name in that issue was Hero.
Oh, okay.
Gilgamesh is the basis of a lot of heroes of myth. In the Marvel universe, there was a situation where it was revealed that he had actually performed some of Hercules' labors, and Hercules was like, I didn't do that. So yeah, he was the basis for a lot of the heroes of legend in our world in the Marvel universe. So for some reason, even though they don't look that much alike, the dude that played him in the movie was in shape, but he was a big dude, and for some reason it makes me think of Sammo hung on martial law.
I got you.
So I appreciated that.
All right, well, then next up is Thena with a 2 cost 1 power after each turn, +3 power if you played exactly 2 cards. And this is one I went for and got. I built a deck around Thena, essentially with other elements in there to fill up like the lane. So it's all about like getting low cost cards out there, and Kitty Pryde's an essential part of that deck too. Asler's in there, Mojo's in there. Yeah, it's Shauna and Kazar. Sunspot's in there, so it's won me a lot of games too.
Nice.
So I'm really pleased she's able to get up there north of, well, I'd say close to 10 usually. So yeah, I like her as a card. How about you?
Yeah, I've seen her a lot. I think I got Grandmaster, and then I was like, well, because I had my eyes on some of the cards later. And so I thought, well, okay, I got one new card. That's about all I'm going to risk on that one.
Right.
But yeah, I saw her a lot of what I have in my notes. Not a game breaker, although I guess if you build the right deck around her, she can be. I didn't see her as a huge problem a lot, but you got to pay attention to her.
Yeah.
It's not a card that's like, oh, yeah, Thena's over there. A lot of times when she first came out and I was seeing her a lot, I'd try to get Red Guardian over there on her.
Knock her out pretty good.
And Red Guardian is just way better than Red Guardian should be.
Well, yeah. I don't use him enough to actually be like, okay. It seems like every time I have him in a deck, I face somebody with Sunspot, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I can't wait to use Red Guardian on Sunspot. And by that time, they've laid somebody else out there on that lane, and I end up screwing up. But,
yeah, he's one that I think fits into a lot of decks. Like if you got room for a 3 cost, there's not much of an argument against him. I don't know. He's just one of those that like his effectiveness in the game is greater than his effectiveness as a character, which is just like, oh yeah, Russian Captain America. Or in the MCU, he's like the Soviets' embodiment of a dad joke. I like the card. I use him a lot.
Okay. All right. Well,
he wasn't from this season.
Gotcha. Next up is Sersi, 5 cost, 7 power. On reveal, transform your other cards here into random cards that cost 1 more if able. I ended up with her somehow. I don't know how. I don't recall purchasing her. Maybe I did.
When your kids get a hold of your phone?
Right. I'm scrolling through because I was looking at what I needed to write down for unlocks today, and I'm like, wait, I unlocked Sersi? When did I do that? I know I've used her a couple times, and I think I remember like the reason why I got Sersi. It's coming back to me a little bit. I think I was like, oh, this is definitely chaos incarnate here. I lay out a bunch of 1s and watch them become 2s. And I'm starting to remember some games that it was like, well, sometimes you don't want that to happen. Yeah. It can backfire. I wish I could remember the 2 cost card that ended up like almost costing me the game. But anyway, I got her. I used her a little bit. Obviously, I forgot about it. So I haven't used her enough. But how about you?
Yeah, I tried for her twice. Got Meek and David Mack's Phoenix Force variant. It was pretty cool. But did not get her. And then again, it was like, okay, well, I'm saving my spotlight keys. I've seen her several times, and she's another one of those cards that, like, I wouldn't say that she doesn't make a difference because she can, or she can backfire, but not one that I'm like, oh, crap, they've got Sersi. I think it was just yesterday, I got her probably with an Arishem deck, not to get too far ahead of us, and did confirm that she will turn a 6-cost card into a 7-cost card.
Ooh.
I forget if she ended up there randomly or if I played her there. It didn't seem like it would be the best idea to play her somewhere where I had a 6-cost, but I did, and she turned them into Arishem.
Okay. What other is Death a 7-cost?
She'd be an 8-cost. So she's 8. If you play it on a 6-cost, you're going to get Arishem pretty much.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah, good. But
yeah, most 6-cost cards, I guess if you've got a turn 7 or you played Arnim Zola early, you have nowhere to go. But yeah, like I said, I'm not sure how it ended up that way, but I was just like, oh, Arishem, okay. Because I wondered about that. When it came out, I'm like, so if there's now a 7-cost card, does that mean she would turn a 6-cost into a 7?
Yeah. All right.
I mean, nothing to plan around, but if you ever are in that situation and you got Arnim Zola or the leader sitting there, or you got Null for nothing from the raft and haven't destroyed anything, it's worse ways to go.
So I remember now, because it just took me a couple seconds to scan through the 2-cost cards. Yeah, I turned a 1-cost card into Carnage.
Oh, ouch.
Not my favorite move. Anyway, all right. So after that, it's Makari, 3 cost, 4 power. After the turn, runs from your hand to a random location if possible. And yeah, I've seen her a few times, and each time that she shows up, I'm like, man, I wish I would have got that card. It's one of those cards where not much of a downside. She takes up maybe a spot. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did got her on my second try. And yeah, I put her in just about anywhere. If you've got a 3-cost that you don't have a card you need in there, what's the downside?
Yeah.
If you got a slot for a 3-cost. I did get a Gladiator variant before her, which, oh man, I'm just going all over the place.
Well, you're all right.
Take this outline and shove it, Starcher.
Sure.
Yeah, she, of course, I immediately put her in my Surfer deck. And then I'll talk a little later, I made a new kind of Surfer deck that I also stole from somebody. but I thought about it too. But yeah, like you said, she's if you draw on your first hand, on your first turn or second turn, you've got a 3-cost 4 power down before you could even play it.
Wow.
And every once in a while, if the draws don't go right, you don't have that many cards for Surfer to boost up. So it's always good to have another one out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up after that's Phastos. What we had this discussion, I thought. How do you pronounce Phastos? Phastos? Phastos?
Phastos. Yeah, I think it's a nod to Hephaestus,
okay.
The forge for the Greek gods.
Yeah.
But I always, when I heard his name before I saw him in the comics, and even now having seen him in the movie and on the card, I think of Fisto from Masters of the Universe.
Yeah,
that's who I see.
Oh man, Phastos 3-cost, 3 power. On reveal, give each card in your deck -1 cost or +2 power. And yeah, this was one where I was like, okay, do I want to try to spend a key? So I didn't play very often this season. I didn't have very many keys this season. I think I'd used a lot of them on the Blink in Time, and I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I wanted to try and get him, so I didn't. I saved my key, and then what ends up happening is I end up spending tokens for the next card anyway. So I only had like a couple keys, and there's a very good possibility I would have not walked out of there with Phastos anyway. This is a card that, gosh, it would help out if you can. It's almost like Arishem gives you +1 power. If you can get every card in your deck +1 max energy, sorry. And if you can give each card in your deck -1 cost, my gosh,
he gives some of them -1 cost and some of them +2 power.
Right. When you say he mixes it up, so when you're looking at your cards, because I didn't know this, he does that to every card in there. Like some cards might have a -1 cost, and then another one you draw might have +2 power.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just like, okay, everybody in your deck gets -1 cost or gets +2 power. And that's
everyone gets one or the other. So you don't know.
Wow. Okay.
And there's no limit on how low they can go. So you can get some 0-cost cards in there.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah. He's pretty much, obviously my first thought was Surfer deck. And then when he does boost the power, he works well with Gilgamesh, but you can put him in any deck unless they've got Mobius on the other side. There's no downside. You just get the card at the cost you were going to get it before. So
no, it's true.
That was when my luck started back. I hit 3 on my first key in a row last season. I tried 1 on Thena, didn't get it. 2 on Sersi, didn't get it. Makari on my second try, and then Phastos first key.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So yeah, I put him in just about every deck. I know I saw one guy say, hey, he'd be great in a move deck. I don't think I tried that yet. I may have, because I didn't put him in a move deck yet.
Okay.
But, I put him in my Gilgamesh deck, and then I put him in my one that's just designed to get as many points in a couple cards as I possibly can. So it was Shuri, Red Hulk, Taskmaster, and Abomination. And then once they buffed Gilgamesh, I was like, well, see you later, Emil. And I put Phastos in that, so just get somebody out there quicker or load him up with a little more power. Mm-hmm. Put him in the MCU hammer deck, because again, he's another one that'll boost stuff for Gilgamesh, and he's got a pretty impressive hammer there on his card too, so he fits thematically as well.
Nice. Very nice.
And I also threw him in my Engines of Destruction deck, which is Nimrod, Destroyer, and Galactus. No. Just to help get one of those guys out. It doesn't always work, but it's fun when it does, but just to try to get those guys out a little earlier. So yeah, right. He's another one that I feel like can work in just about any deck.
Okay. All right. Well, next up, the card that I think a lot of people were waiting for, and that's Arishem. 7 cost, 7 power. At the start of the game, +1 max energy. Shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. And I think my notes are short and sweet. This he's fun to have. He makes playing the game that much more interesting because you don't know what you're going to be drawing, as long as you're okay with that. If you throw in Weird World or something like that, and you're running a specific deck you get upset like me and I retreat immediately. But
I did have a guy, I got Weird World, and I had a guy who was not playing Arishem, who I almost called Oneg. I had a guy who was not playing Arishem, and so I was using his deck, and he had access to all of mine. I didn't appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. I've had a lot of fun. I was winning games that I was like, man, how am I winning this? You kind of don't know what you're going to get. You may get some cards that you definitely know what you're going to get. Blob was a necessity.
Oh, yeah. First time I've used him in ages.
Same here. I
was hearing so much about him, and my first thought was, I'm just going to use Darkhawk and smack all you Arishem people around. And then I was like, this actually does look fun. Don't be that guy who has to rain on everybody's parade. Not that I consider using Darkhawk raining on someone's parade. Right. I did see someone online say, I can't believe some of you are out here running Darkhawk when other people are trying to have fun.
Come on.
And I'm like, that's strategy, dude.
Right. That's kind of, like, I want the cubes.
It's okay if you don't like it. I ventured onto Reddit and expressed my dislike for a card and was basically told that I was wrong.
Yep. Immediately shut down.
A loser. Emotional.
All those rational people out there on the internet are going to call you out, sir.
Oh, it wasn't quite as bad, but I was just like, really? Nobody else feels this about High Evolutionary? Nobody? I don't get it. I mean, he's not an unbeatable card, but I still say he has no downside at all.
I agree. I hate him.
There's other cards with much greater upside, and clearly there's other better performing cards, but what's the downside to High Evolutionary?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Anyway, but that's fine. Anyway, I'm not emotional. Who are you calling emotional?
Right.
Back to Arishem. Yeah, I made an Arishem deck and an anti-Arishem deck. I, of course, thought, I'm like, oh, Blob, that's a great idea. And so did everybody else, because it's not a huge secret.
Yeah, he's not.
You're like, hey, Blob. And I'm like, yeah, good one, Jesse. I'm not alone. But my main goals were, well, of course, Quinjet, like we talked about, and Mockingbird are great there. And then I've rotated a bunch of stuff in and out, but Phastos, because you're altering a whole bunch of cards, Venom and Hulkbuster to clear out some space. And it does have its downsides, too. There were a couple times that I quickly added Sunspot because I'm like, there's no way I can use all this energy, especially when they made Project Pegasus the featured location. But yeah, and then at one point I was like, well, I probably shouldn't put so many 1-cost cards in, because there were a few where it seemed like all I got were 1- and 2-cost cards, like all I could put out on the board. But then, speaking of being reunited with Blob, man, this just brought M'Baku back in a big way.
Oh, boy. I saw the posts on the Twitter.
Yeah. 3 outright victories and one where I would have won on a tiebreaker anyway, but he eliminated the need for a tiebreaker.
Yes.
And somehow I missed that they had changed his ability. It used to be he jumped to a random location, then it was he jumps to your lowest power location that isn't full. So he's like even better than he was.
Whoa. That's awesome.
So yeah, at first I took him out, and then I'm like, no, I need the joy of M'Baku.
I didn't put M'Baku in any of my Arishem decks. I have 2 that I'm running, and I forgot to put him in there. And even after seeing the posts, I was like, oh, M'Baku, he must have got him randomly. Why would I even think that? I don't even know why I would think that. You even shared the deck with me.
I don't think I took him. Yeah, M'Baku is to me as Legion or Quake is to you.
Yes, indeed.
Even if he's not in my deck, he's not far from my heart.
Right.
Yeah, and like I said, you could make the argument that statistically or whatever, he's not a must-have in there, but it's like, okay, I'll take an extra loss for the joy that comes from an M'Baku victory.
Oh, yeah, that's not...
Like, you can have your cubes.
All right, next up, we're going to talk locations, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Arishem, remember that, because Arishem is going to be making an appearance in our battle that we have planned for this discussion. But let's talk about locations first. And our first location is World Forge. Replace one of the other locations each turn. And I think when we were recording last, we had just started right after the season began. World Forge was out there, and I remember complaining initially, I think on the podcast, and then you were like, you put down here, let chaos reign. And I'm like, you're right, I did. What was I thinking? And then the rest of that night, I started playing, and yeah, I had a lot more fun because I was watching these locations turn left and right. So I had a good time with it. It's not Tarnax 4. I don't know what will be Tarnax 4, but World Forge was fun nonetheless. How about you?
Yeah, I remember enjoying it. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but it was neat. I know this one and the next one, I'll go into it more, kind of made me less reliant on a card that I have in a lot of my decks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one's Eternal's Arc. After turn 5, flood the other locations. So kind of continue with what you're talking about.
Well, if there's anybody I put in more decks than Luke Cage, it's Magic. I am the guy that whoever made the meme, should I put Magic in my deck? Nah, the other player will have her. I'm always like, I need one more turn. And if you're not careful with Magic, I'd be like, okay, those locations will be locked down. And I'm like, well, wait, if I use Magic, I'll lose that turn 7. Mm-hmm. And then, so I have to play it on the Arc. And then the other locations aren't flooded. So it was like, it's like the one emote they have, or the memes you see of the calculations running through someone's head, except mine, it would start to gear up and then they would all just fall. It'd be like, okay, 7 turns and 2 locations locked down. Wait, no, that doesn't work. So I think I made sure to use Jeff. I don't know if I actually brought a War Machine back for that one, but I made sure Jeff was handy.
Yeah, I was not excited about this location at all. And I don't know why. The moving that you're talking about there, using Nocturne, Jeff, and Vision, it just didn't occur to me to do that, or at least make a deck and then make a run of it. I think I've seriously played maybe up to 5 games that day. Granted, there was some stuff, if I remember right, by the end of it was about 10 o'clock, and I'm like, I haven't played Snap today. I just never played anything on that day. So I don't really have much to talk about. I think I played a couple games and just like, whatever. But that's not exactly a glowing review, but again, sometimes you have those days where you just don't have a chance to. Usually I really like location days, and I don't know why, but that location, I was just like, I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan, but you can make it work. Obviously,
maybe
your strategy.
You were a little too negative, an Arc overreact, if you will.
But
or if you won't, maybe you shouldn't. I don't know.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.